2021 पर हुई चर्चा का सारांश।
Now, Honorable Minister for Finance to respond.
Thank you very much, Chairman, sir. I wish to thank all the members. I'm told about 55 members have participated in the discussions and have spoken about the budget. I had stated from the beginning that my speech in the Lok Sabha was fairly long, sir, I admit, but it had so many things to say about because all of us in the ministry and the Prime Minister himself have spent a lot of time between July, when the budget was presented, and now to look at the various ways in which various sectors who have been interacting with us can be engaged with and also their aspirations met. Because many of them were facing a lot of challenges. So in my reply, having heard many of the members, and in my absence through the MOS taking the detailed notes, I'd like to respond to most of the speakers, sir. But of course, I'll go through some of the initial comments that I have to make about what is our economy briefly, which most of you all know, but I would take this opportunity to highlight. The nominal GDP of the country has increased from 2 trillion, sir, in 2014-15 to 2.7 trillion in 18-19, and it has reached 2.9 trillion by 2019-20. The macroeconomic stability is something which all of us will have to keep in mind. The averaging GDP growth has been at 7.4%, and inflation has been at 4.5%. And then, based on RBI estimates, the central government's liabilities have come down from 52.2% of GDP by the end of March 2014, that is, to 49.4% by the end of March 2019, clearly showing a healthy trend in terms of liability to the GDP. Now, with all this and also the various steps taken between July and now, the question often asked is, are there any green shoots? What is your timeline for recovering the economy? I'd like to point out 7 specific green shoots before I get into details of answers to some of the questions. The global sentiment, sir, is towards India in a very, very favorable mood, and that is seen by the investments which are coming from the foreign investors, which is continuing to show confidence in India. The net FDI flows is 24.44 billion, which was in April-November 2019-20, compared to 21.1 billion in April-November 2018-19. Second, the FPI flows, the net FPI flows in April-November to November 2019-20, sir, has been very positive at 12.6 billion, as against an outflow of 8.7 billion in April to November 18-19. The third is we've announced a national infrastructure pipeline, and in that we've already identified projects worth 103 lakh crores, for which 22,000 crores have already been invested in the National Infrastructure Investment Foundation Fund, which also has a subsidiary into which, and also the Indian Infrastructure Financing Corporation. So with this 22,000 crores and market being leveraged with it, we are sure that 1 lakh crore can easily be taken for the spending on infrastructure. So then the industrial activity has seen a rebound. And in November 2019, the IIP numbers have registered a positive growth of 1.8% as compared to the contraction by 3.4% in October 2019 and by 4.3% in September 2019. So the PMI manufacturing, that is Purchase Managers Index, has registered a steady improvement, increasing from 51.2 in November 2019 to 52.7 and 55.3 by January 2020. So it was 52.7 in December 2019, 55.3 in January 20. PMI services, I earlier mentioned about manufacturing. Now PMI services also has increased from 49.2 in October 2019 to 52.7 in November 2019 and further to 53.3 in December 2019. So the next point is of the Forex, foreign exchange reserves, that have been built up from 413 billion by the end of March 2019 to 466.69 billion as on 24th January 2020. Now, gross GST revenue generation has been a matter of concern for everybody. I'd like to show that the revenue collection is really improving and consistently improving. So month of January, sir, 1,10,000 crores, 1,10,828 crores has been collected. During April 19, January 20, the gross GST revenue collected has surpassed 1 lakh more than 6 times, and therefore pointing towards an increased economic activity overall. Just to get specific, sir, November 2019 compared to November 2018, there's a 6% growth in the GST revenue collection. December 2019 compared to December 2018, 9% increase in GST collection. Come to January 2020 with January 2019, 12% increase in GST collection, sir, continuously. So November, December, January, we've seen a collection increase. And therefore, the negative growth which was seen in the GST revenue collection between September and in October has been overcome. Now we have 3 steady months of increasing GST revenue. So then I go to the 7th point of green shoots in the economy. There's a positive confidence on the Indian economy. The secondary markets continue to be upbeat, and the BSE Sensex increased by 5.6% up to 31st January that I'm speaking over end March 2019. More than this, the lagged effect of the previous cuts of repo rate have started showing, and therefore I see that also playing on the stock markets. Nifty India Consumption Index has also maintained a positive growth. So then there are other indicators through which we can establish that there are definitely a lot of green shoots. Now, I would want to go into the details of the 4 engines of economic growth, which is normally referred here as private consumption, public investment, private investments, and also exports. Before I go into that, the whole set of details on that as to what we have done for bringing impetus to each one of them, I want to specifically go back to talking about the points that former Finance Minister, Honorable Member of this House, has spoken about, and all of us listened with great intent and keenness to know what is being said. A lot of assumptions were being put on us. The government is predisposed in its attempt to be protectionist, predisposed against FTAs, predisposed about the strength of the Indian rupee. So one thing I concede, sir, we are certainly predisposed about one thing, and that is not to repeat the faulty remedies which the UPA government had given in 2008-9 times when there was a crisis. None of that will be repeated by us. That is the predisposed mindset of this government. The diagnosis of what went wrong between 2008 and 9 and the treatment that had been offered here, I would like to list out some of them. So the twin balance sheet problem is something which we have inherited in 2014, and as a result of which a whole lot of issues have cropped up for the health of public sector banks, for the number of cronies who have run away from the country, who we are trying to bring back. So that balance sheet problem is not something which I would want to learn from those very competent doctors. One. Second, sir, NPA ran into lakhs of amounts. We are retrieving all of them, and every session of the parliament, we are standing up and answering questions on how much has been brought back and how many people on whom we have taken action. NPAs ran into lakhs of crores, and of course the cronies have ran out of the country. We are getting them all back. That is another remedy offered during the 2008-9 crisis. We certainly do not want to inherit or copy those remedies of competent doctors. Second, inflation was in double digits. Food inflation was also in double digits, and consistently at that. I have read out the figures, but I will talk about the deficits also, which were during that period, the fiscal deficit during that period. Today, the FRBM Act is being shown to us. You know what it is? Do you know what you're doing to it? I'd like to quote it back to say how much of FRBM has been violated during every year of the UPA government. But we have not done that. So we have not taken the remedies offered by the competent doctors. On handling inflation, we have kept it well under 4 all through our rule. And under Prime Minister Modi, food inflation has never crossed beyond the acceptable threshold. Sir, flight of capital. And before that, sir, data and account fudging. Data and account fudging on which we are most often questioned. I just want to highlight here, sir, 2 things which I want to highlight here. Between 2005, 6, and 10 and 11, sir, every year there was an issue of oil bonds. The total of oil bonds issued is 1,40,000 crores. Total of oil bond. And that, compared to the GDP, then made up for 1.9% of the GDP then. Imagine what it would be today, but then it was 1.9% of the GDP then. Even today, we are paying annually, every year, 9,900 crores on these bonds as interest. That was the total number of bonds, the value of bonds for which we are paying the interest. All right, governments borrow, we have to pay interest. Understood, sir. Government's liabilities on oil subsidy. This is where I think we all have to see when we are talked down to about fudging of accounts. Government's liability on oil subsidy, sir, was shifted to the oil market companies so that their books appear nice and they don't have any kind of too much of overload. And the oil marketing companies were kept with this burden that after we have come out in 2014, we are taking that also. Contrast that, sir. Contrast that to what we are doing now. This is the budget presented in 2020-21, sir. We have shown both in the expenditure profile and the budget speech what extra budgetary borrowings are and where does this question of extra budgetary borrowing, particularly from the NSSF for food security, is also happening. We've shown it publicly. We've not hidden it, nor have we hidden it even from the speech. We've said that, and also clearly mentioned at the bottom as to capital infusion for public sector banks, which was in July budget up to 70,000 crores, is also shown here. We have not fudged any of these accounts. We have not pushed it onto oil marketing companies. We have not, kept our books nice and clean and pretty, but we've shown everything where they should be shown. And therefore, sir, very clearly, we need to understand competent doctors.
Yes.
So then, flight of capital. Flight of capital, sir. 2010-11, sir. If I have to read it in Indian rupees crores, 97,320 crores of rupees. 11-12, 1,65,146, and so on. Percentage growth over the previous year, sir, minus 36% happened in 2012-13. Literally, FDI ran out of this country between 2012 and 13, sir, minus 36%. And this is competent doctors holding the economy together. So then, we were told you have a predisposed mindset about FTAs. You don't want bilateral agreements, you don't want FTAs. Sir, the FTAs which were agreed during that time have been reviewed not just by us in the ministry, have been reviewed severally by several experts, have been reviewed by the much praised chief economic advisor who is often nowadays quoted by the opposition benches. Even he has said that FTAs are harming many of us. It's all right, sir? And if FTAs drafted during that time, negotiated during that time, I appreciate Commerce Minister today who's spending hours on FTAs and the impact it is having on Indian industry. For negotiating such FTAs, sir, I would want to appreciate today's response in the ground for the competent doctors. Today, no one wants us even to talk about bilateral because industry is scared, MSMEs are scared. The effect of some of the old-time FTAs are hurting them. And I have no hesitation in saying that such people should have an interaction with those who have agreed with those FTAs, sir. Competent doctors again. Sir, then I'll come back. The country is accused today. Oh, harassment. Harassment is happening. Criminalization of, the acts, IT acts and so on. I'll just quote the example of one act, sir. I'll just quote one example. In 2014, I was a Minister of State in Finance. Since then till today, the number of amendments that 2013 Companies Act is going through, you can ask anyone in this house, anyone here and there, the amount of work one has got to do for cleansing the Companies Act passed in 2013, which has such a lot of criminal elements, till today, all of us are bearing the brunt. Sir, I was also told, oh, look, CIA today is telling you how to, remove criminalization from, the various acts. You must listen to them. I wish to say, sir, as soon as I tabled the budget, I went for a CIA forum and invited the CIA to say, please give me any suggestions which you want us to take up so that the criminal elements which have gotten into our statutes will be removed. I have offered it. Please do recognize that. Sir, I wish also to say this, that the defense budget is very poorly allocated. We've not given much at all. And the Ministry of Defense and the newly appointed COD, Chief of Staff, should all protest. Was mentioned in this house. They should protest was mentioned in this house. Sir, entire Defense Ministry was paralyzed. The defense of India was paralyzed. They didn't have an equipment. And look at the way bulletproof dresses were not available.
Please speak.
Sir, the CAG report, which says about bulletproof vests for the soldiers, relates to what has not been bought during their time. And I, when I was there, had ensured every soldier gets bulletproof. And what about Rafale?
No.
What about Rafale? Why didn't they buy it? Why didn't they buy it? So, having paralyzed defense of India, it's very odd. A former minister wants the defense ministry to protest. I am shocked, sir, at the way in which governance is being treated. I'm shocked. Toilets, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Madhya Pradesh example was given here, saying 46,365 toilets have disappeared. We were told that. I just want to say, sir, the state government of Madhya Pradesh has initiated a verification, formal verification process, and has responded to us to say, through the district collector, this is going on. So far, about 46,365 have been checked, and it has been found that only 649 were actually missing. Since all financial incentives in Madhya Pradesh has been paid through DBT, direct benefit transfer, over the past 3 years, any gap will be identified and filled on priority. Now, this is Madhya Pradesh government responding to us. Appropriate action will be taken against all those found responsible for any missing toilet, is what is being said by them. Now, the Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation is also following. Sir, with a lot of sentiment, midday meals you're not giving food to children, was thrown back at us. I'd like to tell you with data, sir. I'd like to tell you with data. 2018-19, the actual expenditure on that scheme was 9,514.34 crores. Our government has been increasing allocations at every stage. We have kept BE for 2020-21 higher than the BE of 2019-20. So I'll come to the deficit, fiscal deficit related data, sir. It's very important. Under Prime Minister Modi, sir, fiscal discipline is maintained all through. Between 2014-15, 15-16, 16-17, and down till B 2021, I will just read out the fiscal deficit numbers. 14-15, the fiscal deficit was 4.1%. 15-16, 3.9%. 16-17, 3.5, 17-18, 3.5, 18-19, 3.4, B 19-20, 3.3. Now, RE 19-20, 3.8, where we have used the forbearance in the FRBM Act and therefore used the window to escape clause. And we have shown a trajectory through which the glide path is established. Next year, that is 2020-21B, we have already put it at 3.5%. So, if this is what Prime Minister Modi and his government, respecting the FRBM Act, is showing as the deficit, consistently keeping it well within the limits which is allowed by the FRBM. FRBM is from 2003-4, sir. Let's just look at 2008-9, 9-10, 10-11, 11-12, 12-13, and 13 and 14, sir. I've given the trajectory between 14 till today. So let me also go back to look at 5 years. 2008-9, sir, 6.1%. 6.1%. 2008-9. 2009-10, 6.6%, going up. 2010-11, 4.9. 2011-12, I've read the future and present, and then only I've gone there, sir. Have the patience to hear it. 2010-11, 4.9%. 2011-12, 5.9%. 12-13, 4.9 again. And 13-14, 4.5. So, ours is a consistent list of coming down, and only when this extraordinary year, because of very many developments, have we used the window escape clause which the FRBM Act gives us. Also, there was a concern expressed. Your capital expenditure may go up, but your revenue expenditure is going up a lot more, which will mean that you won't be able to spend on capital expenditure, sir. Probably the Honorable Minister, former Minister, forgot non-debt capital receipts and only looked at the revenue receipts and therefore came to this conclusion. But I must here say, revenue expenditure going up always is not negative, sir, because revenue expenditure also includes expenditure on schools and hospitals. They are spent for human capital. And also, in Government of India, all centrally sponsored schemes, which total to 3.4 lakh crores, are booked under revenue expenditure. A part of which, sir, is used for creating capital assets at the state level, which that itself is 2.1 lakh crores. So if of the revenue expenditure, which is centrally sponsored schemes, 3.4 lakh is going, 2.1 lakh is going for capital building. There is no way in which capital expenditure is coming down. In fact, I'd like to highlight the fact the overall expenditure of Government of India is gone up by 16.5% when we need this expenditure now, given the situation. And this figure is actual versus the RE, 18-19 actuals versus the 19-20 RE. And the capex has gone up, that is BE to BU, I'm comparing, 21% has increased. Capital expenditure has increased by 21%. And yet, more importantly, sir, maintaining this fiscal discipline, we have kept the fiscal discipline but not cut down. On the contrary, increased on capital expenditure. That is a specifically typical thing which I want to highlight of how governance is given importance by Prime Minister Modi. Capital expenditure has not suffered. Fiscal deficit has not been let loose. We are managing both. And that is the discipline which I want to be recognized. Sir, there are a few more points which I would elaborate on the way in which the government has looked after the MSME sector. We have arranged for a credit guarantee trust, fully guaranteed through a credit guarantee trust, a quasi-equity which we can provide for MSMEs. Although given as a quasi-equity, the MSME sector can use it and raise loans with it and also be able to perform better. Also, we have ensured that the turnover threshold above which companies have to get their books audited, their accounts audited, has been raised from 1 crore to 5 crores so that MSMEs can have a bit of a relief given to them. Sir, also, we have raised the customs duty, making us appear as though we are protectionist, raised the customs duty on several items which are made successfully and in good quality by our own MSMEs. We don't want these commodities coming into India, and they are not raw products, they are not inputs, they are not intermediary goods, they are final finished products which consumers buy. Instead, if they bought it from the MSME, it will certainly help, and therefore we've raised the customs duty on those items. Sir, further, we have also made sure that a scheme of 1,000 crores will be anchored by Exim Bank together with SIDBI so that pharmaceuticals, auto components, and certain other such MSMEs can benefit from these. And finally, there shall be a national logistic policy which will help the e-logistics market. We will have a single window. Employment generation will be made sure by that and making MSMEs competitive, sir.
आप देख रहे हैं केंद्रीय बजट 2020-21 पर राज्यसभा में हुई चर्चा का सारांश। वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण ने बजट सत्र के पहले चरण के अंतिम दिन आम बजट पर हुई चर्चा का जवाब देते हुए कहा कि हमारी सरकार ने देश के विकास के मद्देनजर बहुत ही स्पष्ट लक्ष्य रखा है। देश के बजट के 3 आधार हैं। पहला, महत्वाकांक्षी भारत, जिसका केंद्र बिंदु कृषि, जल और स्वच्छता से संबंधित है। दूसरा है आर्थिक विकास, जो उद्योग, वाणिज्य, रोजगार और निवेश अर्थव्यवस्था की अवधारणा पर केंद्रित है। और तीसरा है जिम्मेदार भारत, जो महिला, बाल कल्याण, संस्कृति, पर्यटन, पर्यावरण और